Hi guys. So today we are doing a question answer round, which is being hosted by me and answered by the co-founders of Algo University. We have received a few questions, pressing questions for that matter, from a few students from NIIT Raipur, who which we would be answering over the course of the next 10, 15, 20 minutes, so that it would best help you in getting job placements later on, and at the end of the course, probably help you in enhancing your skills as well. So let's start with an introduction. If I'm guessing Manas and Beva would like to introduce themselves, please go ahead.
Cool. So, hi guys, this is Manas, and I have previously worked in AlphaGrep Singapore as a quant trader. I'll be telling about more about the quant roles, and I've also previously interned at Direct and I'm the youngest intern at Direct and I interned there at 12th. We'll be talking more about these, and right now, for now, I'll invite Vaibhav to introduce himself.
Hello guys, I'm Vaibhav. I previously worked at Google Munich and Facebook London, and in this session, we're trying to like give some information which can help you to land such jobs, and like you'll see as the session goes on.
Fair enough, Vaibhav. So I think we'll directly jump to the questions. And one of the most pressing questions that we have found is, in fact, it's on priority one. What are the different job profiles, right? So after graduating, what are the different job profiles that you get, and how exactly do they differ from one another?
Cool. So I'll take that question up, Aruthro. So broadly speaking, when you're a new grad, there are four major roles which you can enter into. So the first is the most popular software development, which we call it SDE or SWE, and that is the most popular role. Most of the jobs are offered in this particular role. And then second is as a data scientist or machine learning engineer. Uh, so yeah, there are very few roles at few good companies that directly takes you as a new grad without masters or PhD experience. And we'll talk more about it in the later in the video. And the third is quant research role. And this is a role which very few people outside the old IITs know about. And one of the reasons is that they are very few in numbers. But the major differentiator and why these roles are really interesting is that they actually offer like really high base salary. So they offer 40 lakh, 50 lakh salaries, the cash in hand that you're going to receive at the end of the year. So this is not the so like for example, for reference, like Microsoft, Adobe, they all also claim to give out 40 lakh salary, 45 lakh salary, but that is CTC. That is not the cash in hand. The actual cash in hand, if you're say at Microsoft, is like around 85,000 per year. So that is roughly like 12, 13 lakh, and same is for Amazon and other companies. Rest of the deal is structured in stocks, meaning that the rest of the money that you're going to get is at the end of the 4 years. So this structure of pay is like really different when it comes to quant research roles, and it is mostly it does not have any stock deal in it, and it just has its base bonus, and that is it. So all of the money that is being told is actual money that you're going to receive at your hand. And the fourth role is site reliability or production engineering. This particular role differs very specifically to from company to company. So, for example, site reliability in Palantir or Google is very similar to software engineering role, and even the interview process is going to be like more or less same. But as for equivalent role in Facebook is called production engineering, and it is like drastically different from the types of question that they ask in interviews, all based on sysadmin kind of things. So these are the four broad major roles that a new grad has an option when he begins his career.
Right. So I guess we have a broader horizon about that now. I think one of the next questions that comes up is how exactly do you build the career, in tech as a non-CS student? Because most of us students are from a very non-CS background.
So I would like to take up this question. Like first, we need to think that what do companies look for while they are going to hire someone for a CS position. Uh, the main thing is the coursework. The coursework is different for the CS and non-CS students. So, like one of the ways to make it up is like you have some projects. Like let's say you have 2 to 3 good projects that you can like. I believe that ideally anyone can do 2 to 3 good projects in a span of 4 years. So put those projects in your CV. Have some good background of data structures and algorithms, which will eventually help you to clear interviews also. Once you have these set of requirements, I feel that even non-CS students can easily grab the CS jobs. Like even one of our co-founders is from EC background, and building upon similar principles, he was able to land a job in Google London in the third year itself. He got an internship there. So uh, that was the principle he followed. He had a few projects from the CS background, put them in his CV. Had a good background in DS and Elbow, which will tell that how to build such a portfolio. Uh, these are the key factors, like which can help any student, like even if he is not from a CS background, to get a job.
All right, so I'm guessing it's more about the projects than actually the qualifications that count.
Like
So
project,
I'll just quickly add up. So basically, like as Vaibhav said, the projects are just the entry to get the interviews. But what actually matters, like whether you're a hire or a no hire, is purely dependent on your performance within the interviews. So if and within the interviews, the one single thing that most of the companies right now at new grad position focus on is algorithms, data structure, problem solving, and coding.
All right, yeah, that seems to cover everything up. One of one very common question is that which companies pay around 30 to 50 lakhs per annum as the base salary, and how do you exactly get into them?
Cool. So I think I already spoke about it a little in my previous answer, but I'll slightly add up more on that. So, like as I was talking about, the typical software jobs, their salary structure is like base plus stocks. The stocks are all of the money that you're going to get after 4 years. If you stay there in the 4 years, if you quit after say 1 year, you're going to say get 5% of the stock or 10% of the stock. So this is how typically the software roles they count CTC. But when they talk about CTC, 40 lakh CTC, 50 lakh CTC, they accumulate all the 4 to 5 years salary. So that is kind of misleading and it still propagates. And so that is it. So don't get misled by the high job packages in the tech industry. But there are few companies that actually pay that much salary every year. A few of the examples are like say Tower Research. It typically pays like 35 lakh rupee base and around 10 lakh bonus. That makes like 45 lakh overall salary that you're going to get every year. But companies like Tower Research, their salary is they do a lot of differentiation based on colleges. If you're in old IT, this is the kind of pay structure that they offer you. If you're from different college, they do not pay you as much and they mostly take on campus. They don't go for off campus. So this is one of the companies which pay highest in the software industry. But if you want to earn this kind of salary and actually bag it those 30, 40 lakh home every year, then one of the best way and I think the only way is to actually get into quant research roles. So I'll talk briefly about what these roles actually do in their day-to-day job and what is the interview process that typically occur in these kinds of firms. Quant research is basically mostly it's more about like coming up with algorithms, optimizing them to scale of nanoseconds, and doing kind of FPGA kind of programming. And these kinds of roles require you to make some kinds of algorithms which trades the money of the firm on behalf of like whatever situations is happening on live. So this is like pretty interesting role. Even the job is like interesting for few people. For few people, it gets too much of sitting in the one place and working a lot of with a lot of mathematical models and a lot of programming. So it depends like how people like it or not. But this is what roughly their day-to-day job accounts to. I'm not getting into detail. This is the overview. And as for like how can you get into these companies? These companies look for people who are like really great at problem solving and really good mathematical background. So if you have cleared Maths Olympiad, or if you have gone for World Finals, or if you have like really high rated on Code Forces like your yellow or red, then these kinds of company tend to prefer to interview you. And within the interview, typically what they ask is like typical problem solving, like which is common with software engineering roles. The second thing that they try to look for is like if you're street smart. So there are specific in questions which try to test like your ability to think on the foot. So you can expect kind of puzzles and all the things that are typically not asked in software roles. And the third important thing that they concentrate is on probability, permutation combination, and statistics. They have a they have specific set of questions that they definitely are going to ask you to test your mathematical prowess. So yeah, there are very few rules, and it is like really hard to get an interview and actually go through it. But if you can go through it, the salary is like insane. So you can get around like 40 lakh, 50 lakh salaries every year. So the kind of salary in my firm AlphaGrep I would be getting was around 50 lakh base salary. And of course, there is an extra component of performance bonus. So if your algorithms are doing like pretty great, then you can make more money than this. This is like the guaranteed portion of it. So this is the kind of jobs profiles which actually offer you 30 to 50 lakh jobs.
I mean, yeah, money is one thing, but is there something more that you can probably get from joining that company? You I get it. You get 50 lakhs. You get to a certain strata of the society. You understand it.
I think for most of the people, getting into that Wall Street kind of atmosphere is like in itself a plus. But yeah, most of the people join it because of high differences in salary. If you go into Google or other in India, like the best software companies,
Right.
they're paying you like almost 3 times or 2 times more than that.
Exactly. All right. So I think the next question is more direct. It says that how to become yellow rated on Code Forces fast. So it's a more technical
Okay, so
question.
I'll take up this question again. I think like this is like very open ended. So rather than talking about like how can you become, like I'll talk about how I became yellow at Code Forces. So basically, like typically what happens is like in the platforms like Code Forces, like you can either double down on making your speed faster and faster, or you can become yellow if you can solve harder problems. So I think it is like it really will help you if you decide upon like which kind of way you want to get into, because solving if you solve if you get into Division 1, yeah. So first of all, to get into Division 1, you can get into Division 1 if you solve A, B, C problem like really fast, and occasionally solve D problem also. And if you want to once you get into Division 1, and then the one thing that you can do if you're relying on your speed is like to solve just the first two problems, Division 1A and Division 1B, really fast. So if you do them fast, then also you can become yellow. Or if you can solve harder problems like say Division 1C or Division 1D for that matter, then also you can become yellow. So like mostly for myself, what I concentrated was not speed, because like I'm pretty lazy to be honest, and I did not practice much problem solving and coding. So I just focused on solving hard Division 1C problems, that is Division 2E problems. So I think once you do, like if you have covered all the basic topics, then all you need to get into is to know all the kinds of common tricks, and after that the Codeforces problems are mostly about getting the observational parts like really fast, and then the conceptual thing remains the same as like be it interview or be it ICPC or be it Codeforces. So like I think once your target should be like rather than getting directly to yellow, it should be step by step. How do I get into division 1 first, and then focus on how to become yellow first. So for that, I think you should just if you're picking up solving the problems like really fast, then you should solve a lot of problems. And if you're choosing the way that I chose, then I think you need to spend days on like working out harder problems, and then do a lot of virtual contests to like solve those problems within the time limit.
Right. So I'm guessing to sum it up, the harder problems you solve, the more chances to be elevated. The next question is in line with the previous question that we had. It says that how do you get into Google, tier one companies, basically like Google, Facebook, and the like.
Yeah, I would like to take up this question. A lot of people have this question: how to get to FANG companies, Google, Facebook, Microsoft, Amazon, Netflix. So, like, it's not a one-day process. The first thing that we need to do is build a decent profile. Like, in line with the question that I answered previously, like, build a profile, have some good projects on your CV. Like, that will help you to get to the interview. That's the first part. That's the first milestone that you need to achieve. Like, getting an interview for Google or Facebook in itself is a big thing. So first you have to prepare ourselves to at least go to the mark to get an interview, which like we have talked earlier that getting in some good CS projects done in time, having decent coding experience builds up that profile. So once you get an interview, mostly what matters is how well you perform in that interview. What are your thinking abilities? How good are your solving skills? Like in line with the previous question itself, like you have to keep on practicing to be able to solve tough questions, like be it becoming a yellow coder, purple coder, or getting to interviews, clearing interviews. You need to focus on your problem solving skills. Your data structure part, algorithms, all need to be clear. Like basic algorithms, people don't like in many colleges, people are not aware that okay, these are the basic algorithms or data structures that we need to know. Companies expect them. So, like, that's one part. But one thing that is more specific to these tier one companies is apart from just the problem solving skills, they also focus on the soft skills that you have. Like, how do you go to an interview? How do you talk to them? How friendly you are? How confident you are? How well are you able to tackle the problems or algorithms that you have not faced in the past? So, for example, Google itself has a complete interview round just to check googliness of the like the interviewers. So they have a complete interview in which they just check your soft skills. So soft skills are also very important once you are aiming for tier one companies. And if we talk about getting to Google or these companies in India specifically, so for that, we like Google hosts many programming contests like Google Code Jam and all. So Facebook Hacker Cup. So once you are able to get good ranks in this, that significantly increases your chances of getting into the companies in India specifically.
All right, soft skills are very important. Yeah. People should actually pay attention to more soft skills. I don't know how that is done as much these days. So I think the next question again is in line with what Manas was saying. Also, you were saying that apart from the MNCs, which are the other top-paying startups, right? That a student can look for. It's also very dynamic to work in a startup.
Cool. So I think, Ruthu, I'll answer this question along with another question that a lot of people also ask that, how is it possible to get another job offer in next 3 months, like given the COVID scenario and all?
Right.
So I'll answer both of these questions together because they are pretty much similar.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, basically right now, like this is another upcoming recession that we are going to face. like last recession we had was in 2008, and before that 2001. So we already know what recession kind of looks like. If you don't know, then I think you should go up and like search it up, how it affects and all. And this recession is being predicted to be like even more worse than the 2008 Great Depression. So, I think like that is true that a lot of jobs are also going to get affected, because like let's try to understand like how this thing works, and then we'll come directly towards the answer how to get yourself the best offer in this kind of scenario. So like typically, ideally, software startups should not get affected, but of course, this is a small world. Like for example, Microsoft has very large deals with US government in terms of billions of rupees. And right now, US government is like really, really in a bad state. So of course, their deal and their income and all are also going to get affected. So far, these companies are doing great, but they have already announced their hiring freeze or hiring slowdown. Like Google has already passed out an official memo that this year they're going to like slow down their hiring significantly. And similar is like the Facebook has also like they have offered a few people job offers, but they have just cancelled the internships also. So even the Airbnb, Facebook, Amazon, like Amazon right now is an exception, which has been like instead of like hiring fees, they have increased their hiring. So this is one of the rare case exception. But last year Amazon also hired like massively. So like this year we cannot say for sure like how well Amazon is also going to hire. So this is the whole of the context, but yeah, there are certain like now we can come directly to like how can we utilize this to our benefit. So there are certain areas like entertainment, like the app based companies, like there is ShareChat and there is Vocal. So these are the kind of companies which have like raised millions of dollars, and they're the kind of product that the segment they are in. This is actually booming in this particular lockdown. People are staying in their homes, so they are just they have started visiting these kinds of apps more often. So if you want to get a job offer, like I think in very less amount of time, I think it is very much possible. But you need to strategically pin down and change your strategy substantially. So what happens is like whatever was working till last year, you need to like let go of all those kind of list of companies and the kinds of strategies that you are trying to apply, and you need to like concentrate on these kinds of sector-wise companies. And your number one source right now, the number one option get placed is not good big companies like Microsoft, Google, Facebook, but the high-paying multinational companies or the high-paying startups. And mind you, these companies also pay like really, really high. They pay around like 20 lakh, 23 lakh, like these kinds of base salaries also. Because typically they pay more than big companies. In India, I'm talking about specifically about India. So like I think you should focus on sector-wise companies, and you should try to boil it down and gear your process of applying application like differently. And another thing is like a lot of people do not know the names of this company and these kinds of companies, which is a pretty much a bottleneck. But yeah, you should stay more active. And like we like at Algo University, we have already curated like list of companies like this, and we are already in touch with a lot of HR people from these folks to like make up tie-ups so that we can provide them with like a lot of good candidates.
Right. I think basically customize the strategy according to whatever is going on around you is the tool tip, if I'm not wrong. So that sort of brings us to one of the last questions. That is, how do you get international job and internship offers at this time?
So I'd like to take up this question. Yeah, people are generally like international offers look lucrative to everyone, not just because they are high paying, but like people have a perception that yeah, the quality of work is better. So like one of the major thing that people need to focus while applying for international jobs is they need to follow the timeline. Like every company has a different timeline. Let's say Facebook, for example, itself, software engineering role. Uh, like it opens near, let's say September to October. That's the ideal time when you apply there. And if you come to production engineering, like even November-ish kind of is fine if you are applying. But like, let's say you want to apply for software engineering role and you in November decide, okay, I'll go to Facebook portal and apply. That's not going to work. You have to stick to the timeline. Like the selections are on rolling basis, so it's not like you can just give up and like give up 15 days and apply 20 days later. That's not going to work. Another very important and crucial thing is people generally tend to go on LinkedIn or just mail the recruiters directly that, hey, here's my profile. I've done this, that, this, that. Just refer me or like get me an interview. That's not going to work. Like every recruiter on an average tends to get hundreds of emails daily in these companies. Like where people are saying that I have this much credentials, try to get me an interview. They just ignore such mails. The best way, like the company, how these companies tend to take talent is they have the referral thing, where a person itself, like an employee, will refer you. Like that's the best way to go. Like someone vouching on your behalf that okay, this person I know him, he'll refer you. So that increases the chances of getting an interview first, manifold times. So once that interview part, like once you get the interview, then it's up to your skills that where do you take that interview. So these are the two main things that you need to take care.
Correct. So I'll also add up on what Vabo said. So like, yeah, as for LinkedIn, there are a few people like employees who post like, hey, I'm going to refer these many people, just send me a resume. So there are two kinds of things that happens. First of all, quality of referral matters a lot. If say you're taking a referral from the person who joined the company 2 months ago, versus if you take a referral from person who is working there for 5 years, of course, your application is going to be queued up if you're taking the latter option. And typically, what happens is like a lot of people, say that, hey, like I'm referring you, please send me your resumes. So typically, their quality of referrals also get like the quality becomes like really worse because he's just applying for random people, and the company specifically asks the employee that, hey, how do you know this particular person that you're referring to? And in those sections, typically people say the truth. So they typically say, hey, I don't know. I just met him on LinkedIn and that's why I'm referring. He's a stranger. So you have to take that. Have you worked with this particular person? If yes, then the referral quality and the rank in your queue of your application gets on the top. If you just say, hey, this is a random person that I think might be a good fit, then your quality of referral gets like tagged on the bottom of the queue. So this is another important point when it comes to LinkedIn. And another thing, as Vavo was speaking about the timeline, yes, the timeline is like really, really critical. And the examples that Vavo gave was very apt for till the process till last year. But from this year, it is going to change mainly because of the recession again. So like we cannot right now say like for sure that yeah, this is the correct timeline. If you want to get an international job offer, timeline is like really, really crucial. So the best way for this particular placement season is to get into touch with us or with the people who are already working in those companies.
All right. So I think referral is important, but you shouldn't. I mean, be careful who's referring. So that pretty much brings us to the end of the question answer session. I think most of the questions, most of the things have been clarified for the students. If there's any message from Vaibhav or Manas we would like to pass on, would you guys like to pitch in anything?
I think like we'll like to wind it up. If there is any questions or queries, like you can ask us, or yeah, like
exactly.
that will be
ask us
it
further,
from our
and
side.
We'll be happy to discuss it in the next round. That brings us to the end of it. Thank you for watching.
Okay, bye bye.
Bye.
Bye bye. Thanks.